Okay. Yeah. So I guess I thought we'd start this morning by, I guess we have an hour, so try and get through these points fairly quickly. We might not be able to address them all, and that's okay too. So I guess the first thing I would like to do is, we're all fairly familiar with each other, but maybe we'll just go through one by one, just introduce quickly who you are, what's like kind of your main skill set that you really have implemented or want to implement, what interests you in Avagachi Dao, and I guess start off with whoever and just kind of give a little intro amongst ourselves.
Hey, I'll start. I think it'd be better if you call on people. It'll speed up the process.
Sure.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah, Marvin, go ahead.
yeah, I think I mentioned in one meeting, full stack engineer for a L1 blockchain company, actually on the governance team, and I develop dApps to kind of support that process and stuff. So lots of TypeScript, JavaScript, and blah blah blah, and that's me.
That's
Oh, and I'm
awesome.
interested in the DAO because just governance in general, but specifically the world's most active DAO. I definitely want to be a part of it.
Hell yeah, I get that. Maybe we'll go with Jared next.
Yeah, Jared here. I do a lot of just programming projects in my spare time. I've got a lot of extra spare time right now, so I'm very keen to help out the Avagachi DAO with any program related work required. React front end, website stuff I can do. I can do Unity game development. A bit of Solidity. I'm not an expert at Solidity. I know a little bit. Yeah, and some data science, statistics stuff as well. So yeah, that's me.
Right on, and you've done some great work for Avagachi DAO already as well, an Avagachi ecosystem in general, I'd say.
And probably want to mention I've got your stats, got you buddy,
Yeah,
those.
all those tools that I built for the community. Yep.
We appreciate that, sir. We'll go with Michael F next, if you don't mind.
Hi, sure, everybody. My name is Michael. I'm a digital director working with a company in digital transformation, mostly for telecommunication companies. My job is to implement software and have project management and business development within the company. I'm within Avagachi the early days and stick to it, love it, great community, cool project, love to contribute to it.
Yeah, very cool. We got a technically inclined group here today, it seems like. Maybe Scrooger next. Scrooger, if you don't mind. Otherwise, it's okay if you don't want to, but yeah, I thought I'd give everyone a chance. He might not be. Oh, GM chair. See you. See you here. Shaw, you want to go ahead? Just give a little intro. Who you are. We know we've been talking a lot lately, but maybe just a brief intro for those who don't know you. Who you are, what interests you about Avagachi Dao.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Shah. I've been actively developing games in the Avagachi, and I was formerly an Android developer application, but I was interested into developing games in the past 2 years now, and in the past months I've been actively trying to progress and push the ideation of this arcade platform, because I was thinking that this is what we at the moment need to incentivize the developers also, and we needed this stage to showcase our games and what we are actually putting so much effort. So I was trying to get some help from the community and have a NGMI as well, and to deliver these ideas and this platform for this community and this ecosystem.
Nice. Yeah, thank you. And we'll definitely talk about the ATF and the arcade near the end of today. Give you guys a brief intro on what Shaw is working on, and we'll probably need a whole meeting dedicated to what is being put together there. But yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
We got Mikey J. We know your analytics, but maybe give us maybe an idea of who you are and what your skill set is and what interests you in Avagachi Dao.
Yeah, hey guys, GM. I'm Mikey J. My skill set's pretty diverse. I'm sort of a jack of all trades, I guess you could say. My background is really in serial entrepreneurship. So I've built and sold several companies, and in the process I've had to do just about everything from sales to marketing, IT. I'm not really a coder by trade per se, but I have software development, some skills that I've had to use from time to time. So I can do some of that. I can definitely have a strong expertise in business operations and business processes and things like that. So, I'm just here to help out however I can, and, excited to be a part of the DAO and keep on building.
That's awesome. I've been reading a book lately called Range. Talks about generalists and people who are, specialize in many different things. Could be really a powerhouse in a DAO. So, grateful to have people like yourself.
Awesome. Thanks.
We got Hardcore in the house. You want to give these? I mean, we all know you, but maybe just give us a little intro on kind of what your main core skill sets are, and what kind of role, what you're interested in Avagachi Dao.
Well, I'm also another generalist. I can teach myself anything in a few days if I need to. So I have a plethora of crappy skills. But my main skill and focus in life has generally been organizing people and enabling people to accomplish things. Like I founded music scenes, I throw festivals and stuff, and I can generally operate with no budget and just make things happen.
We definitely need people like that, sir. We need people that can make things happen, and I think you got the right skill set for the DAO. If it hasn't proven itself already, you're very active. So, yeah, it's awesome. I think the only one, Chair, we got Chair here. He came in there at the end. If you don't mind just sharing your skill set and what interests you in Avagachi DAO, just a brief intro.
Certainly. Thank you for having me, folks. I am Chair. I am currently the project manager at Infinity Keys. We're building Web3 based puzzle games. I've been in the gachi scene for about a year and a half. Red is Haunt 2 kicked off, so whenever that was, very active and highly interested in DAOs and in sort of this early to mid, I guess still early age of DAOs and the impact it's going to have on humanity. I'm fully addicted to Avagachi. I came from development, like I got into project management first being a developer and still do a bit, but mainly now scoping and coordinating and doing some business ops as well. I am in the ATF along with Shaw and I think a few others in here, and I'm developing a game for the gachi community. So sort of fully entrenched in the gachi world, want to specifically sort of push the game development aspect of things, but also sort of just want to contribute to the overall health and success of the space.
Thank you. It's incredible we have such a technically inclined group this morning. It's awesome. So for the chat, I think if we are going to, communicate, via text. There is a little chat, built-in chat in this meeting room, so you can use that if you need to. I see Scrooger in there. I think his mic wasn't working, so it's okay. Glad to see you in here. Feel free to express yourself in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that during the meeting. I think the first thing I want to just quickly bring up was Discord access for myself. Do any of you guys in here have access to this DTF server, like the roles and, you know, giving people additional access? Because I don't have access to this server. It's very limited with what I can do. Can't really set up events or really anything. So I think that was the first thing I was just gonna ask and see if anybody in here has Discord access for the DTF. I think it's Dr. Wagme, but I'll follow up with him if that's the case. No. You got access,
Yeah,
Jared?
No, I don't have admin access.
Okay. That's okay. I just wanted to put that out there first. But I'll talk to Dr. Wagme about that. So I think the first thing, there's a few things we'll be going through today. One of them is this idea of Avagachi Dao now being its own entity and presenting ourselves that way. I feel like up until now we've kind of been very much attached to Pixelcraft, and just talking to Jesse, I think the goal here now is to slowly start moving away from that and becoming more independent as a DAO in terms of maybe even taking some of the things that Pixelcraft is doing that the DAO should be doing. And, you know, that goes back to some of the recent work that Jared did, you know, things like that are things that we could definitely. I think hosting events was another one that was mentioned, that, you know, this mosaic tile contest could potentially be handled by the DAO. There's definitely a whole bunch of things that, you know, Pixelcraft takes care of, that if we market ourselves as Avagachi DAO, we could have the right talent and skill sets needed. I think sometimes it's just identifying the right skill sets also. I don't think it's like a matter of looking for new people. It's just kind of doing what we did here and finding out what we're all good at, and finding someone who maybe does have experience with promoting brands, and you just having a social media presence for Avagachi DAO, even if it's a, you know, a Twitter or a Lens profile that we're occasionally tweeting about what we're doing. I'll be working on a blog, so I'll be writing a blog. I don't know the frequency yet. Maybe I'm thinking bi-weekly. Have 2 posts a month and have those linked to the Notion page. I'll show you guys. But having just a presence for Avagachi DAO, I think is important moving forward, just to also help people differentiate between Pixelcraft and Avagachi DAO, and to maybe promote ourselves a little bit more across socials, and that might attract more Web3 talent if we're talking about the latest game we're building or whatever project we're working on. It might really resonate with somebody on those socials. So just wanted to throw that out there. If you are interested in any sort of social media account management, we can talk. We can maybe figure out some sort of compensation for you to, you know, just provide some engagement through Avagachi. Otherwise, I can, you know, I don't mind starting a Twitter and just having some presence for our DAO on, you know, whether it's Twitter or Lens or whatever it may be. Okay, I just see Scroogers put something in the chat. I'll just read it out there. Our team isn't huge, but we try our best to make with what we have. Our coder is very talented and a very fast learner of new code. Strongest languages are PHP, JS, and C#. Good experience with Unity as well. I'm not a coder, but can handle my own when it comes to marketing, promotion, project management, team building, leading a decent sized team, delegating to the right members to make sure things get done on time. Our artist is also extremely talented, and she designed everything for our game, and she could possibly create logos for games. I know pixel art is mainly used in the Avagachi space, so it might not be her strongest quality, but other art related requests could be handled by her. We might be a small team, but I think we can bring something of value to the ATF and DTF. So he's talking in reference to the game Gachi Heroes, which I'm pretty excited about. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. So with that social media stuff out of the way, I'll just show you guys the Notion page that we're working on right now. And this is something that I'll make sure we might need to get a paid membership for this to get more members on here, but ideally it should be a workspace that we can all use and have access to. So this is the Avagachi Dao Project Hub. I built this kind of a Notion. This is a template that I started. So it's not completely done. It's a work in progress. I think getting some of the data populated in here and getting I want a Miro board linked down here and then have my blog linked over here. So this would be a central source of information for Avagachi DAO. And so, you'd have your mission, vision, and values. I want to have the SOP right there. So if you want to reference the DAO SOP, which we'll have to develop, that'll live right there. All the meeting notes, including the ones from today, will be archived here. We can archive all the DAO AGEPs over here. There's a people's directory, so going through everybody's names and skill sets today, I think would be very helpful with the point of contact. In case you ever do need to reach out to Mikey J or you need to reach out to Jared, you have a point of contact for that without having to run through Discord. And then educational materials, if you do feel there are any educational materials that would help people understand DAOs in general or what we're doing specifically with Avagachi DAO, we can definitely put that in there. Funding, I want funding to be accessible for people. I think that was one of the main things. Oh yeah, I can definitely share a link, yeah. Copy web link. Now there's an internal and external link, so if I share this and you don't get access, I might be sharing the internal by accident. I'll try and get you the external. I think that should be it though there. That link right there should take you to it. Funding procedure. And keep in mind this is a work in progress, so some of these tabs you might click into and they might not really have anything. So the funding section here, I'll have funding procedure, how you can get funding. I'm going to be linking a tally form over here for apply for funding, so this should take you to a tally form. You'll be able to fill out a whole a funding application, and it'll automatically end up in my inbox, so there won't be this manual process of going in Discord back and forth. It'll just end up in my inbox, or maybe I might be able to link it to a Discord channel or something where it would show up there. But having a way where that's automated somewhat, partially, at least for submitting the application, that's something I want to work on. Schedule a meeting with me. This will be integrated with Calendly, which I've been using lately to schedule meetings. Marvin P. I'll get to that question just in a second. So we got the funded project proposals. Those will all live here in a document, and funded work orders and bounties. So I think we had identified the need for full projects being funded, and then also individual work orders, like what Jared had just done. I think that would fall under funded work orders or bounties. So that's the funding section there. Community projects. This will be kind of like a project requirements document template that people will be able to use and help them get together the requirements for their project, what actually needs to be done, from critical to maybe this is nice to have. Your project plan will live here. These are for the larger projects that Avagachi DAO will probably get, longer term things. We'll probably need a well thought out plan with a budget breakdown and specific tasks, how long those tasks will take, and paying those tasks individually but as part of the larger project. And then the jobs and bounty board. This will be things where, kind of what we offered Jared, but I'm assuming we'll probably have a lot of these jobs available for people to do, whether they're media related or, technically for the technically inclined. We can have those jobs there for people to grab, and I can deal with that board as people are claiming bounties to do and follow up with them. And then this was the other aspect of what Dr. Wagme was talking about, the actual Dow Development Road Map. So the roadmap for the actual Dow itself, and also where the technical documentation for the Dow infrastructure will live. It can all live in there. This is what I have so far, but I'm actually open to opinions. I'm open to if we need to add a whole nother section, if we need to add other tabs, or if this is good enough to start. I'm gonna get the help of OXZFi, who's a Bankless DAO member, and he's helped them with their Notion stuff, and so he's almost a Notion wizard when it comes to integrations and getting the Notion to look functional and nice. So I might be employing some of his help via a bounty just to get this done, and hopefully by next week this will be fully functional, where all these things I just described will actually work. The data fields will be populated, and this will be a central source for us to communicate, work. Yeah, like I said here, a workspace, database, and resource for collaboration. So this is something that I really wanted from the start, and I know there's better tools out there probably. There's DAO House, and I know some of you mentioned some other ones, but this repository could be a baseline, and we could definitely build on top of this, or we could integrate this database into other things, other DAO tools as we build out the DAO. So this is just a first look at the Avagachi Dao Project Hub, and I hope you guys like it. I tried to put some visual elements into it. Just gonna read the comments here real quick. Okay, so going back to Marvin P, your question. Respec potion sigprop passed. Who creates a core prop and assign an agip number? I think that should definitely be a DAO member that does that. Maybe we can have a role assigned to that, but it's definitely well within our ability to advance to core prop. I don't mind being the one to do that if I am the the PM for the DAO, but I also don't mind if someone else says, hey, I'll go ahead and do this. Oh, right now that's Moon. If that's true, then maybe we should give Moon a role in regards to that. Or, I see also you're saying you think it should be the DAO, so maybe not. Maybe it's not a PC member that should be doing. Need a plan to phase out PC for snapshot loading. Yeah, I agree. Part of getting out of Cocoon. Just reading what you're saying, Heiko. Hardcore. I bought Miro. Break it out as iframes so boards and graphics can be displayed correctly in the Notion and later in the UI too. That's awesome. That's great. I think the Miro boards on the Project Hub will be real nice, especially the way you've been doing them lately. It's like really easy to follow, and I like the workflow there. You vote for Hefe. Yeah, okay. I don't mind doing it. I can actually be the one, and I think this is something Dr. Wagme had initially discussed. So we can assign an agip number. I guess what the workflow could look like is the sig prop can be reviewed by myself. I can advance it to core prop if there are no issues with that, and also assign an agip number, and then archive it here in the DAO agip archive, so we have it for reference there. I'm just gonna add that in notes here. Heavy
Hey, something right quick. I was just thinking that for discussions and stuff, the DAO forum is excellent, and my thought is more information in the DAO discussion rather than in the Notion doc is kind of my thinking, and so I think there's a good balance for that, DAO discussion in the forum opposed to in the Notions doc. Does that make sense?
Are you Are you saying take the DAO discussion and archive it in Notion?
Oh no, I'm saying you could just have a link in the Notion to point to, pertinent discussions as an archive mechanism.
Oh, yeah, that would be interesting. I can actually.
Because it'd be helpful to have kind of information all in one spot for people to refer to and stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than because what my thought is what we'd end up happening is, oh no, that information's in the Notion. No, that information's in the DAO discussion. You know what I mean? It could get a little crazy.
Okay, archive specific DAO discussions from Discord and embed links. Okay. Yeah, so, basically kind of archive specific discussions from Discord by embedding links or archiving those links in the Notion doc. And then you can have that reference. Yeah. I also think hardcore likes to take snapshots of things and put them on the Miro board. If there's a way to organize those so they look, so they're easy to reference, that could maybe work too. But yeah, we got a few more people in the house here. Just wanted to shout them out. We got Coder Dan, Just Sweet Fatigue.
Guys, just jumping in for a couple minutes here between we have a Tuesday team stand up, so can't really make the main meeting, but just wanted to see what you guys are up to.
Oh yeah, GM. Yeah, and so you got Umami,
GM.
Coder Dan. Welcome. We're just currently going through some meeting points here. We're just going through the Notion that I put together, and just talking about the workspace, what that could look like, and just kind of brainstorming some ideas. But I don't know. I'll get your guys' take on it. Are you guys pretty happy with this? Do you feel like there's something missing aside from the archiving Discord discussions, which I can add that in under maybe DAO resources? Is there anything you feel like I still need to add for now? I mean, this is going to be a working project. We can keep adding and iterating on it. I think it has everything we need for now. Let's see.
Cool. I'm gonna jump out, but
Okay.
Is there gonna be a recording of this anywhere?
Yeah, I'm recording it right
right.
now. I can slip the recording into the tavern or one of the other chats. I'll definitely point to it and have that recording available.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you for hanging out
Cool,
with us.
Yeah. Later.
Later.
Hefe, one thing I did put in the chat was around having anyone from the community in Avagachi to be able to request a bounty. And I think that's going to be covered in the job/bounty board. Hopefully anyone would be able to go in there and sort of request something. That way, like, we're completely transparent and no one feels like that they aren't getting heard. And we look at everyone's ideas. So yeah, I think you've covered that already with the sort of the jobs bounty board area.
Yeah, I guess I just put that in there, request a bounty, but I'll integrate that in somehow where it's it's a button they can press. It maybe links to a tally form, just like apply for funding. I think maybe apply for funding is more relevant for like a huge project or like a comprehensive project, and request a bounty actually might go under here, but request a bounty could be more for kind of like what you just did for the DAO. It was almost like a kind of work order. There was some tasks you had to complete, and now it's done, right? Like, it's not really a project that you did. It was a task.
Yeah, like requesting a bounty is kind of like someone that may not have the skills or the time to implement something, but they know it would be very valuable for the DAO to sort of get it completed. They don't necessarily have it all costed out and know how long it will take to implement, but it can at least kick off a discussion that we can get something looked at and progressed by the DAO. I mean that's my thoughts around it.
Yeah, I agree. There's some great suggestions. Coder Dan also suggested that we link past DAO meeting recordings. What we could do there is well, there's two ways to do that with these recordings. They could either live in our Discord server here, and we have a private channel for these recordings, or we could put them on the Notion. The only thing is with the Notion page, it is publicly accessible. So it's, do we want these meetings to be for everybody, or do we want them for DAO members? What's the level of security around these meetings is kind of my question. If they're open for everybody, then they can live on the Notion. If they're more of a private thing, or specifically regarding group projects and the DTF, like, I don't really know where that document should live, but I'm open to either. Wherever you guys want it, I can put it. I agree on Mikey J's point. Keys just to get started. We can always refine as we go. Yeah, so that's the Notion page. I'm just gonna keep moving through some of the other points. So yeah, we talked about sig props, and so yeah, I want to show you guys the current kind of DAO structure. The way that I see it right now is here. Let me just open this up. Sorry, 1 minute, guys. Just gotta get this doc. But I want to show you guys how I think the DAO is loosely structured right now, and potentially a path forward. Hardcore put together a Miro board so we can brainstorm on that. But this is kind of like what I see the DAO looks like right now. It's kind of like this circle with like different levels of engagement. And you have your Guardian members. These are people who are very, very involved with the DAO. People like Mikey J, you do a lot of analytics, you've done a lot of analytical type of work. Jared, you've done a lot of technical implementation, whether it's what you just did, or creating a website, or creating a DApp. People like Shah who have big ambitious plans. People like myself that create content. These are core, very, higher than core members. They're almost the guardians of the guild. Maybe it goes a little bit with the lore because we do have guardians, but really these are just people who, if we didn't have these people, I think the DAO would be worse off without them. And so they really are important to the functioning of the DAO. You have project sponsors who have taken on projects of their own, whether they're funded by the DAO or not funded by the DAO. They're involved with projects regarding Avagachi Dao. You have core members who, these are the people who show up to our Sunday meetings. Maybe they come to the hangouts. They definitely vote because they get their XP, and they're very much involved. They're posting in the forums. They're involved in active discussions around proposals. These are core members of the DAO. Then you have the mantle. These are people who mainly just vote to get their XP. They aren't really, they're not really involved in discussions in any way, really. They're voting, and that's about it. They're voting on proposals, and usually the motive is, to make sure you're getting XP. And then you have the orbital members. These are, like your scholars, your people who maybe own Avagachi assets but don't really participate in any governance. These could be a very large group in the future, because not everybody wants to be involved in governance. But there's always, as with every game, I've noticed there's only a few people that always are interacting on the forums, and the majority are players who complain. But luckily, there's an avenue for them to get involved here because we are a DAO. They can start voting, they can start being more engaged, and start moving towards, becoming a core member, and so on and so forth. So these are the levels of engagement we currently have. But it's a little bit of a problem because, I'm talking to Dr. Wagme about this. There's kind of no structure here. It's very loosely organized, and it's based on your simply just engaging with the DAO, which is not enough really to have any sort of structure and build something together. And so what what hardcore is put together here is kind of like a like an organogram, and this is kind of what it looks like. This is kind of a working document. Again, we can make changes to it. If you guys don't like it, we can scrap it all together. But this is kind of the, talking to Dr. Wagme, these are kind of the 3 departments, you could say, of Avagachi Dao. And you can see Pixelcraft there, but Pixelcraft is in no way really directly involved with Avagachi Dao. We should be our own kind of entity, functioning as our own entity, alongside, parallel to Pixelcraft, and assisting each other wherever we need to. And so the 3 big positions that Dr. Wagme had initially laid out, yeah, it's just a template. Yeah, exactly. These are, everything you see here is kind of a placeholder. So if we have to make any changes, I'm completely open to any changes. We got the data aggregation, legal and accounting lead, so that would be like a finance and internal operations lead. We have an external community lead, so that's regarding community development and project initiatives. I am the Dao PM, but I actually more so think that right now my role functions as a external community lead. And ultimately each of these departments could have its own PM if they need. Software and tooling development, that would be like a technical PM, so like a dev lead. And we do need that regarding the tooling for the DAO that we'll need. Implementations like getting the queries, like what Jared just did. These are things that the DAO will need. And so I think it requires its own whole department, not only for development of the DAO itself, but maybe in assisting in community development, like community project development wherever needed. Whether someone is having some technical issue that they're not able to get past on their own. I've also mentioned some other subcategories there, bug hunters, and so they could be a group of people looking for bugs. You could have auditors who are auditing smart contracts and looking over things before they're pushed to their finality. And you have DAO tooling specialists, people who are very familiar with specific DAO tools, which would make us an even more powerful and organized force. And then you have the ATF, which, currently I think is in reform, because we are looking at this arcade platform, and I feel the arcade platform will, have the core members of the ATF there as a result. So this is just the first look, and then I got the DTF members there. So whoever the DTF signers are would be there. And then this document can live as a Miro board on the Notion page as well for reference. If anyone is ever wondering what positions are available in the DAO, what does the DAO structure look like, things that they see that are missing, this could be a document to reference. Mikey J, yeah, I feel like you could actually help a lot in data aggregation, legal, and accounting department. Yeah, you have a lot of experience putting together org charts and process maps. This, I'll be straight up, guys, this is not my specialty, but I'm quickly learning how these things work. And my biggest thing is I really do like when people use each other as a resource to get past challenges. So I kind of started here, and if we feel like this isn't enough, or if there's things missing, we can definitely make the changes as we need. But I definitely feel like Mikey J, you would be a pretty good finance, internal operations lead. I think all 3 of these positions, like my position is compensated. I feel like the other 2 should be as well. The technical PM should definitely be compensated well, and the finance and internal operations lead should definitely be compensated on a fairly consistent basis. And then all these other positions underneath will be a case-by-case thing. For example, we have Hardcore as an archivist, and we have got a funding proposal together for him, and he's responsible for a lot of the Miro board management, data aggregation and providing these visuals and almost in a way guiding the Sunday DAO discussions as well. So that's kind of one of the positions there, but we have many others that have yet to be filled. Like I have there. I want to start a whole content creation committee because we don't have a Avagachi V3. Like there's definitely challenges I see as a community lead that need to be fulfilled, and if we get a software and tooling development technical PM, you might see challenges where these things aren't even on my chart, and you would have free reign on how you want that structure to work. Same thing with finance and internal operations. So I just wanted to get your kind of feedback on this. We don't necessarily have to start filling things in and moving things around today, but wanted to get your general feedback on what you think about this. Is there something better out there, or can we start actually working on this framework here and start finding positions for some of these tasks? And feel free to unmute yourself also if you just want to speak.
Yeah, actually, Mikey J here. I was just going to say, this looks like a great start in terms of the org chart. I wonder whether there needs to be someone or some group of people that's kind of at the center of these different departments. And it seems like right now, Hefe, that's probably you or some combination of you. And it seems like Dr. Wagme fills some of that role now. But I'm just kind of curious as to whether that's something that you've thought about in terms of where your role sits in relation to these departments.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think initially we were thinking the PM would actually be communicating between all three of these things, and that the PM would be handling all three of these departments. And then we quickly realized, well, I don't have the skill set for the other two things, to be honest. I do have a limited technical skill set. I know a little bit of like smart contract work. I can use a smart contract. I know a little bit of JS, but not really anything like what you guys have described. Same with the data aggregation. Those are definitely two areas where I feel having a special person there, a lead for those two departments, would be helpful. And I was actually initially looking at these three things as these three people would be equals, and these would be kind of like a small mini group that would be coordinating and communicating amongst themselves between their three departments and making decisions, like well-informed decisions based on their skill sets. That was kind of my initial. I do agree that there could be someone like myself and Dr. Wagme who are the interface between all three of these groups. That could be helpful, especially with communication. But in my mind, I was thinking, we would have a finance internal operations lead. I would most likely be an external community lead, and then we'd have a technical PM, like a dev lead, and the three of us would get together, once a week at a meeting and talk amongst ourselves of what's exactly going on in our respective departments. I see Michael F., you've suggested an extra one there. Business development, road mapping for DAO, and PR communication lead.
Okay, I've got this question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the software tooling development only ATF things involved? Because I see only ATF, and it stands for arcade things, right? So I was thinking that the software and tooling development could be more than just arcade stuff, Maybe we want some tools for the DTF, or maybe some kind of analytic tools, maybe some other things that are related to developers in the Avagachi Dao. Avagachi Dao isn't only about arcade. But so I was thinking that if this could be something bigger than only having, maybe like renaming the ATF to something bigger, maybe developers task force, yeah, or something like that. I'm not sure.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, actually, no. I mean, the ATF, the software and tooling development, we included the ATF as a part of it, as a committee within that. But definitely, there would be other sections regarding analytics, regarding dashboards. There would be groups or specific people responsible for these things. I don't think the ATF's scope would go beyond, developing the arcade. I feel like that arcade product, from what I know, reading the light paper and everything, is going to be a extensive product to like develop, and also the resources required for it. So it would be best that the scope for the ATF is fairly tight, especially regarding just developing like a really well thought out, well functioning arcade hosting platform. We can talk about that near the end there, but I think that is the scope of the ATF. Software and tooling development would be a larger scope that would also cover some of the things you mentioned, and then also I'd mention like auditors, bug hunters, people who are actually DAO tooling specialists, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the platform could be potentially the biggest adventure by itself. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then so regarding Michael F., the business development, road mapping for DAO, and PRK communication lead. I feel like that's maybe a mix. Like I do agree that we do need maybe some sort of a road mapping for the DAO, or I mean, what are your thoughts on these three groups interfacing together and developing that? Like the technical PM, the external community lead, and the financial internal operations lead coming together and planning, this business development roadmap for the DAO. Like, what are your thoughts on the three groups coming together? The leads at least coming together with their knowledge and creating something like this.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable to have good communication between all those departments. I think that's the key of the success, because they're connected anyway. If you see, like, everything is connected, so then it should be at least a weekly meetup. Let's say maximum 5 people that communicate and have a documentation of that discussion afterwards that everyone can read it.
I do agree, though, actually, maybe having some sort of a committee, that is led by the three. So, you mentioned 5. So, you have your leads for each of these 3 departments. They come together, they form a committee, and then maybe there are other tertiary, secondary positions under that if needed. And this, it'd be a fairly small working group, but they would be able to get the resources they need from their respective departments to put the roadmap together. I don't know what your guys' input is on that, but I do agree that having a group working on business development and road mapping for the DAO is really important. And actually, going back to your PR and communication lead, I'd initially put out at the start of the meeting, I'd mentioned the Avagachi Dao brand presence. And so it sounds, kind of strange, but well, it doesn't actually, because we do need our own kind of presence on social in general. As Avagachi DAO, we should have our own presence separate from Pixelcraft. Like, at least having a Twitter account or maybe even a Lens account, and being able to keep the community engaged with what Avagachi DAO is working on is, I think, important, and also will help people recognize the difference between Avagachi DAO and Pixelcraft, because we are kind of like our own entity, I think.
I totally agree. I would even go further and see that there should be kind of like a corporate identity or a DAO identity evolved, that this clear branding of the Avagachi DAO.
Yeah, I agree. That can definitely be some of our. We can come up with a list of objectives in not this meeting, but one of the other meetings. We can come up with a list of objectives and priorities and start knocking those out. But I just thought we'd start with the Dao structure first, and then start actually looking at what objectives we need to accomplish together.
I want to actually chime in and just offer one other thought on just generally like, it's always challenging starting with a small organization and thinking about, how the org chart scales. So I think too, what would be good is to start thinking about, which of these roles, that might exist as, for example, IP enforcement and legal aid are 2 boxes right now, but at the beginning it might be one person, or it might be the fact that each of these giant departments is a 1-person department to start, right? And then you kind of split off those duties from that person as they grow. So that's one way to think about it, is think about this is 50 people. Well, what does it look like at 50 people? And then which boxes can you combine and combine and combine and combine? So even if right now it's it's like 1 person, it's you, Hefe, and then it sort of breaks out from there. So that's just one way to think about kind of how we build this, is let's think about what are the roles at scale, and then which of those roles make sense to combine early, and then you can kind of have that person sort of split it out over time and train a new person to bring them in.
I really like that, actually. I like that way of thinking. And I do agree with actually this chart, looking at it right now. I see myself being a person, 1 person, maybe doing some of all these things right now. Maybe doing none of some of these things, but we need to go from 1 person to maybe 3 at least, to have these 3 leads. And then from there, we can look at how much can these 3 leads each do. I kind of looked at the community development and project initiative one. That is probably one of the more well thought out ones, because I kind of have a good idea maybe of what our community in general, like the front facing community, could use as a group, just being part of GMI and whatnot. I don't think my mapping was as well informed for the data aggregation, legal and accounting, or software and tooling development, but I'm open to feedback in terms of, what that technical PM can take on their own, and also what that finance and internal operations lead can take on their own. And so maybe the first step here is to figure out who these people are. There may be, just like there was an interview process for the PM role, maybe there could be an interview process and people could put their names up. There would be just a general description of expectation, and then also the compensation that be given for those positions. That's something we need to decide then, and maybe think about how much we would want to pay the finance internal operations lead, what would be an appropriate amount for that person, and the technical PM dev, what would that compensation look like. I think would be a good place to start. And then from there, I agree with you, Mikey J. We could then start seeing what additional roles actually need to be found to support those people, to support their roles.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good part of the interview process too, is to then ask that person, like, what is your role for how you would grow this department? What does your org chart look like going down the road? What does it look like today? And then how do you see it growing over time? Would be like a good, to kind of give that person sort of ownership of the department.
I was just writing that down. I think it's interesting. These are points I'll bring up with Dr. Wagme too, because I know this was originally kind of his idea with the 3 positions, and I thought it was a really good idea. And so just kind of want to elaborate on that. And as soon as he's back, I'll touch base with him. So that's the org chart there. I think the general consensus is that these 3 positions make sense. And as a DAO, we should try and have a fixed person for each lead. And we can talk about terms and, how long and all that stuff once the time comes. But for now, we should just figure out who wants to be in these positions and take some applications, and then we can go from there. We need to add an HR in there, probably under operations and finance for now. Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree. Also, another thing, side note, I wanted to mention is anybody wanting to be a scribe for these meetings? It is, I'm quickly learning right now, it is a little bit difficult to be taking notes and, as the meeting's going. Maybe someone wants to be a scribe and just be jotting some things down that are relevant for us to reference back. I think it'd be a good idea. But just something to think about. I'll keep doing them, but if someone wants to at some point take over just doing some of the jotting down and stuff, that'd be great. Okay, so we have the 3 brainstorming session. So short-term tooling, we're coming up on the hour here. I don't want to keep you guys too long. Short-term tooling, we need to figure out a payment system, contributor requests and whatnot for paying people out through the Gnosis. We use Gnosis with GMI, and I know their UI can be kind of clunky sometimes, especially with when you're trying to pay people. So we've used Parcel. We've been using Parcel for a couple months now, and it's been a really smooth interface, easy to use. Allows for descriptions, and it's a little bit easier to keep track of payments through Parcel. You can kind of select how you want the payments distributed. And so if it's a contributor, if it's a bounty, if it's compensation, you can mark it as such, and that might make it easier for us to keep track of those as well. What funding is going out to projects, what funding is going out for a one-time bounty, and what funding is a long-term compensation, I think would be really helpful to have. And also the ability for someone like Jared to go to the UI and not be a DTF member, but still be able to request his funds for the work he did, and then the DTF just being able to sign off on that and get him the funds to his wallet would be a really easy to use tool. Takes 60 seconds to implement. I also have heard people recommend Dow House. So if anybody here is a proponent of Dow House and thinks we should use their tooling instead, but from what I understand, it's a lot more extensive than what Parcel does. And if it's not these two, if there's a better tool you think for just requesting payments, I'd love to hear that. But those are just my 2 suggestions right now. Oh yes, Esmeralda does a great job on transcripts. Yeah, I think maybe I'll ask Esmeralda if he would like to maybe take some note taking during these meetings. I can ask. We should kick off a DAO thread requesting inputs from Avagachi community on what the Avagachi DAO's immediate focus should be. See, this one I'm kind of like, we should get their thread and inputs, but I also think we should use the big brains in this room and come up with the basic structure, and maybe be open for them to change it if they're not happy with it and it doesn't make sense. I think sometimes community input, when it's widespread and there's a lot of it, can maybe slow things down. It may not help us get us to at least a baseline where we have a functional system in the DAO that actually is working in terms of management and being able to engage and mobilize the community to get things done. But we should I definitely think a thread, just, to take feedback, I guess, so people feel like they're being heard, I guess, is the bottom line. We don't necessarily have to implement every change that people are suggesting. So yeah, I agree with that. Actually, we could definitely do something like that in Avagachi DAO. Yeah, it's likely that some of those departments would get broken up over time. Operations, accounting, legal become 3 separate departments. I really like how you're thinking of this in terms of scale, and I'll keep this in mind, and even hopefully Dr. Wagme gets to listen to this recording. But maybe we should just focus on those three main leads, and let's just see what the leads can do, and then we'll go from there. I'd like to see more than 3 heads with C1 level, especially for Dao that quickly. 5 people is a better number. Okay. Maybe we can just think about what these extra 2 positions could look like, whether they would absorb. It sounds like maybe they would absorb some of the roles and responsibilities from the other ones. And so if you feel like I've laid something out here that doesn't belong, or maybe belongs as its own group, that could potentially be something to look at. Yeah. I'm pretty open and flexible about this. I just thought these 3 would be a good place to start, and then, not limited to 3. If we need 4 or 5, and maybe someday even more, it would be good. So that's that. That's that organogram. We can keep we can keep talking about that and developing it. I think one actionable we get from this is to maybe put the word out there that we're looking for 3 leads, and start taking in some applications and screening, seeing what people would be most appropriate for those roles. And then I'll get this from Dr. Wagme. I can just get the current DTF signers. I just want to see the active and inactive, and maybe we should do a sweep and get rid of the ones that are not so active, and maybe replace them with more active DTF signers, or active members, I should say. There's probably 1 or 2 names on there that don't need to be on there anymore. And so I'll talk to Dr. Wagme. I'll figure that out. And then, so this is the, before you guys go real quick, I guess I'll just introduce the Avagachi Arcade and the ATF reform that I'm working on with Shah. And so I can kind of read this intro here for you guys, and also link the arcade light paper intro. And there's also a little presentation, but you'll be hearing a lot more of this. It's going to need its own meeting dedicated to it. We have a meeting coming up with Dan on the 29th, so we'll be able to talk about that with Pixelcraft and continue to develop this idea. But we at the ATF envision the arcade to play a really important role in the future of Avagachi ecosystem. That's why it became our first priority to dream and put most of our energy into this project, and to focus on building this powerful hub to gather everyone on a united platform with the support of the community, with the support of community members and developers. We can turn into a real army walking towards the same goal. This is going to be known as, we know the gotcha-sans right now, the art release, social release. This is, in my opinion, what will come after, which is the Avagachi utilization era, and it's adding utility to Avagachi assets, which currently don't exist. And so Pixelcraft is working on one half of that. They're working on the Avagachi battle mechanics and the Gotchiverse battle system for Avagachis. That will add one aspect of utility. The other aspect of utility is something I think Avagachi Dao can accomplish by creating a standalone product that will be able to host and monetize arcade games, while also being an avenue for funding for minigame indie game developers, and also being able to fund events and attract new gamers to Avagachi. And so this move kind of needs Avagachi DAO and the DTF to stand behind it, and to fund this huge community-driven project to enable the ATF to actually form a real development team so we can start building it. We're firstly aiming to encourage the current existing game devs and artists living in the ecosystem and keep them motivated along their creation journey, and secondly, trying to onboard new talented game developers, gamers, and artists into Avagachi, with empowering them through the arcade platform, on-chain, or through community-driven game jams. Artist promotion, so there'll be room on this platform for artist promotion, giving creators the appreciation they deserve, and also acknowledging all the game developers for all the great work that they've done, and finally being able to give them avenues to monetize their games. And so there's multiple working pieces to this, but we'll get more into it. I just wanted to give you guys a little brief intro, and I'll also plug the white paper here for you. Or sorry, the light paper intro. So yeah, just have a look at that. We'll talk about it more, and it's a working idea, It's something that Shaw has been working very hard on, so I appreciate the work you put into getting this idea together to this point. And also in GMI, I've started a arcade incubator. So, if you want to interact with some of the artists, writers, musicians, people who are on, secondary to developing just the platform itself and, have an avenue for talent there, you can actually go hang out in the GMI server and, use that as a resource as you need. Yeah, nice to see you, Michael F. Does anybody have any last minute concerns, anything you think I missed during this meeting, or things that we should bring up during the next meeting? I think we're kind of on our hour now. Just want to respect your guys' time as well. Appreciate you, Jared. Thank you. So actually, that's a good question, Mikey J. Can we have this a week? Is this going to be too inconvenient if it's a weekly meeting? I think it should be a weekly meeting, in my opinion. I think a weekly meeting would be beneficial and would probably provide significant momentum to what we're trying to accomplish here. So I don't mind doing a weekly meeting. Yeah, I'm down for weekly. I might not have this at the exact same time next week. I'm trying to get a feel for people's timing we got a pretty good turnout today. Just want to make sure it's convenient for the majority. I know Dr. Wagme would have preferred last night, around 3 p.m. my time. I'm on the West Coast. But unfortunately, he does clinical rounds, I think, in the mornings. So that didn't work for him. I would like him to be at those meetings. So it might be a little biased, but I would, if there's a time that works for everybody here and also works for Dr. Wagme, I would prefer that time. But it's going to take a little bit of experimentation with these meetings to find a time that works for everybody. So I'm definitely down to have a weekly. I'll put out another Calendly vote next week, and I'll pick a few more times, and then we can all vote on it and then have another meeting next week. Hardcore, the conflict of interest discussion needs to be had so we've defined what we're okay with. Yeah, that's actually another thing I was going to mention. We will be working on developing the SOP. So I have here in the Notion tab, there's a Dao SOP here. Nothing here yet, so we need to populate that with some of those things. Definitely a code of conduct, expectations for DAO contributors. Yeah. Do you think that should live in the SOP as well? The SOP document? Code of conduct, expectations. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Sounds good. I think this was a productive meeting. I'm grateful all of you came here and hung out today and were able to speak about this. I think we're onto something big here, and we talk about Avagachi Dao being the largest DAO in the world. I mean, that is us. That's it's not Pixelcraft. It's us. So we should be really proud of that. And I think we can showcase that and really show people that Avagachi DAO is its own entity that's capable of producing its own revenue producing products and as it's a fully functioning organization standalone from Pixelcraft. I think that's something that's going to be a huge accomplishment and also something I don't think we're that far away from. So yeah, really looking forward to accomplishing that and being recognized as the Avagachi DAO. Yeah, agreed. Well, if you all have no other questions or concerns for today, thank you all for your time and hanging out with Hefe on Avagachi DAO, the inaugural meeting. I was going to make a little badge or something. I just didn't have time. That's just how it is. But it would be cool if we had a Yeah, exactly. POAPs. We need a POAP guy. Yeah. All right, friends. Well, I think we are done here for today. So with that being said, hope you all have a good day. And I just got one more thing. Actually, I'm going to slip this into there. Oh, that's not it. Never mind. Have a good day. We'll link up again next week. And yeah, peace out, everyone.